Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Would you please introduce yourself?
Well, Reza Aziz Khani.
Mr. Aziz Khani,
Yes.
I've heard a very, very famous story about an incident in Iran in the 70s that a UFO was spotted. And through Anna, your daughter, I heard that you're in town and I would like to ask you a few questions about that event, if that's okay by you.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me, and my pleasure to be here. Uh, and I'm here just for vacation, and I haven't talked about this at all during last 30 some years, but I'll be glad to answer your question.
It's an honor for us. So I remember when I was a teenager, this was major headline news everywhere.
Right.
And by the way, we're doing this interview very informally and in English, such that a lot of the people who grew up here can also enjoy it. So, what was the exact date? Which year did this happen in?
Well, first of all, the way that you younger than me, maybe you remember more than me. So. But I believe it was 1977 that this happened, if I'm not mistaken. But I wish I had my papers and award with me, because all this the years that it happened has been documented, and the award that they give me later on from UFO of the United States. I mean, actually UFO is worldwide
Mhm.
uh, institution, or
Mhm.
whatever they call it. And I'm sure everybody knows that UFO is abbreviation of unidentified object,
Flying object.
flying object. Yeah. So the date and everything is hacked on that. And yeah, it happened, I believe, in 77.
77. So 76, 77. All right. Okay. So, as everybody knows, 99.9% of UFO sightings are either, somebody saw Venus or Mercury, or there was a balloon or something. Somehow this event has been recorded and emphasized as one of the top 5 truly unexplained sightings of UFOs. And since you were there, could you give us a first-hand account of what happened that day and how the events unfolded?
Yes, first of all, that sighting is being reported by the award that they give me about a year after, is being documented as the best UFO sighting ever during those years.
Mm.
Even the best sighting that some people claim that they took a picture, they saw everything, but this being documented as the best sighting.
And what was your role in the sighting? You were in one of the jets that I believe chased the UFO.
Actually, yes, because that time we had some complication with Iraq, that was our neighbors, and we always had the alert airplane. They were all loaded with all kind of weapon for protect the
Airspace.
airspace in Iran. And that time I was serving Air Force in Hamadan Air Force Base, that they call it Shahrukhi Air Force Base. That time the name was Shahrukhi Air Force Base, but later on they changed the name to Nuja, I guess, because I don't have that much information after revolution, so they changed the name. So we were on alert, and usually alert aircraft there were 2 aircraft with 4 pilots. That was commander, actual pilot, and the navigator that sit in the back seat of F4. F4's aircraft, they had a pilot and a navigator. And we were alert. I was the first alert. And it was
So first, that means you were the first jet that was
first, yes.
took. Okay.
Yes, if something happened and they need a airplane, I was the first one that could be notified, and we usually sleep beside the aircraft all night, everybody. And it was around close to midnight almost that they called for a scramble, and this word comes because of the we call a scramble flight, so we have to take off and go wherever they want. And the call was from Tehran airport tower.
Wow.
Commercial. In Tehran, there were the airport. One side of the airport was Air Force base, and the other side was commercial airplane. So the tower was the same. So they called from tower that they seeing from the tower, control tower.
And this is Mehrabad Airport.
Mehrabad Airport, that they see some flying object, unknown flying object, around the another a small airport that they call it Qal'e Morghi. It's located about probably 25-30 miles from Mehrabad Airport. And so we took off from Shahrukh Airport, and it's about, depends on how fast we can fly, but we could get there about probably 10 minutes, 12, 15 minutes. And we get in over the Tehran area, capital city, and they told us that this flying object is too close to the ground. It's not that high.
And how close was it?
They were saying that when they're sitting in control tower, they see the subject almost level of the tower.
So just 100 feet or so,
Yeah,
maybe a couple
probably,
hundred feet.
but it was about too far away. It's, as I said, again, I'm not sure exact, but it was around 25, 30 miles. And by the time we got there, this object raised the altitude and went more higher. When we get there, we had about 18, 22, 23,000 feet above the ground. And this object was almost same level of us.
Could the
And-
tower figure out how fast it gained altitude from a few hundred feet to 18,000?
Yeah, he said that the object climbed very fast, very fast. And when we get there, we were almost about 20,000 feet above the ground, or 22,000 feet, and they asked us to go and verify what kind of object it is. So, but when we went toward the object to find out, before that, my co-pilot, that was a radar man, he was trying to get it on the radar, and we could see the object on the radar very clearly, not as an object, but just like a dot. That time, the radar in aircraft that was not that sophisticated to show the object. It would show the dot on the radar scope.
So it looked different than other aircraft on the
No,
radar?
because it shows only a dot.
So it was just like any other aircraft
Any other
as far as the
aircraft,
radar was
yes,
concerned. Okay.
just like any other aircraft, if we were flying and we would see on radar. And we have option that we can lock that object or that dot, lock it up on the radar, so any other direction we go, we could follow it. And in case if we want to fire any missile or use any other equipment, we could not miss it. But whatever he was trying, we could not lock on that object or on that dot, which was strange, because even if we see the top of the mountain and we will see it on the radar, we could lock up the radar on that object, but this one we could not lock it up. Even if there was some people maybe say that maybe it was a cloud, but even the cloud, if we will see on the radar, we could lock it up, even on the cloud. Actually heavy cloud, the light cloud you cannot. But we could not lock the radar on that object. So we tried to go toward, maybe get close to it to see what is it.
So at this point, how far were you from it?
That time about close to 30,000, 30 miles.
30 miles,
30
okay.
miles away from us. But we tried to get close to that object. Unfortunately, we tried to get as close as possible, but we never could get closer than 21 or 22 miles.
So it kept moving as you got closer.
Yes, it's changed the position, and very strange thing that in this site was that when we were going toward this object, he could change the position from 12 o'clock, because when we go toward the object and he's exactly in front of us, we said 12 o'clock. If he goes to the right side, we call it 3 o'clock, left side 9 o'clock, like a clock. But this object that actually it was not visible what is it, but it was the huge mass of lights. It was a mass of lights, nothing else. You couldn't see, especially it was nighttime. And the size of this light was maybe the size of the big building. It was a huge.
So bigger than a normal aircraft.
Yes, it's much bigger than a normal aircraft, and it was a few colors that these colors, I don't know how they were changing, but it was changing maybe because of the direction of that object, or it was changing constantly, I don't know. And the most strange thing in that site was that when we were going towards this object, if he wanted to change the position, he could go from 12 o'clock to my 3 o'clock in just blinking an eye. Maybe a second or two, even not 2 seconds.
Wow.
In 1 second, blinking an eye, we see it in front of us, and we could see it in right side or the left side.
And this is at speeds that are nothing that you've seen before in normal aircraft.
No, nothing. And the other very strange thing was that we never could get close to him more than less than 21 miles. And we figured out that why 21 miles, because we knew that the range of missile that we were carrying was 21 miles.
Oh wow.
Two reasons. One, the range of missile was close to that 21 miles, and the radar could not lock on any object more than 21 or 22 miles.
Mm.
That's why we figure out that he's keeping that distance from us, so we cannot do any
Harm.
harm to it.
So you guys think that it had knowledge about the range and of the radar that the F4.
I'm
This is an
sure.
F4, right?
Yes, F4 aircraft, F4. Yes, and probably he knows.
Huh.
Probably, probably the beam of the radar that get to him, he knows that how weak it get after 20, 21 miles. The beam getting
Degrades,
weak
yeah.
and decrease. So that's why I try to stay on that range.
Mm.
And this happening few times wherever we go, and he descending sometimes and he climbing sometimes, but most of him just changing the position of it.
But was the changing of position, in your opinion, random, or was it in reaction to what you guys were doing in terms of pursuing them?
Exactly, it was reaction to what we were doing. If we were not doing anything against him, against that object, and the object was just steady and stay at the place. And one of this time, this object descend and went lower altitude from almost 30,000 foot and start descending. And that was the time that we could get a speed from 30,000 foot to whatever altitude that the object was. So we gain a speed. We gain a speed, and it was the time that I believe that we get to the range that we locked up on the target, on the object. But meanwhile, the tower was communicating with the tower was communicating with the command post in Air Force commander office, and they're trying to get the permission that what to do. And they were giving different orders that, and they were not allowed to do any action about this subject actually. And finally they said that if you see there is harm from that object to you, you can fire if you can, if there is any aggressive action from the object. And that was the time that we could lock on that object and I tried to arm the missile because there were 2-3 steps we have to take until fire any missile. We have to go 3 steps until fire the missile, and the first one was we locked it down. The second one was we have to turn the missile power switch on and get a good light and then ready to fire. And as soon as we tried to that and turn the missile power on, that was the time that all the light and all the navigation, even the radio and everything, completely went out from the aircraft. So
Wow.
we had no communication, we had no power for the missile and everything.
And this is exactly at the time that you tried to arm the missile.
It happened exactly the time that We tried to arm the missile, and
And something like this had never happened before?
no, it never happened before. So that was the time that we were getting low in the fuel, and that was the time that they called for the second airplane.
At this point, how long had you been flying and chasing the UFO?
I think it was close to maybe 40 minutes, 45 minutes.
Wow,
This
okay.
this going on, and we stayed there until the second aircraft come in. And the second aircraft when come in, he saw the object. He did exactly whatever we did, and on that time, that aircraft, because it was coming in a high altitude, when it get close to that, is gained some higher speed. I believe that it could get close to this object, and I believe because that object, whatever it was, saw that there is not two aircraft, that each one coming from different direction to him, or maybe there is some dangerous spot for him. We saw that the lights that we could see in huge light, the size of the very big house, is some other light, very small. It was very small, maybe 1/20th or maybe more smaller than that object, came down from the bottom of that light, bottom of that object. And when it came down, dropped down, looks like something dropped, and then after drop, goes toward that the second aircraft that was coming.
Okay, so let me just understand. Here's the main UFO.
Right.
A small lighted object drops from
Right.
underneath of it
Right.
and immediately takes off chasing after the second F4 that was
Yeah,
dispatched.
chasing, and we called, and after that missile, arm switch, and all that we lost our communication. After a few minutes, not even 3 minutes, after 1 minute, it came back on again.
Mm.
Our communication came back on again. That was the time that we called the other aircraft that this happened, and that aircraft start to maneuvering away from that
Small
another
light.
small object coming toward him, and that maneuver caused that the object missed the aircraft, and that object crashed in the mountain that call it Bibi Shahbanuz mountain. It was.
So do you think that object was a missile that the UFO
We don't
fired?
know. No, we don't know. I never seen such a thing, but it crashed in the mountain.
And did anybody get a fix as to where it crashed and do any investigation?
No, we get to that later because and the object after that somehow disappeared in the air. You could see that it's just
The main UFO or
the
the
main
okay.
main one. You call it UFO. We never figure out that what to call it, but it disappeared. It disappeared like a lights going in the sky and fading and disappearing.
So do you know in which direction it faded
It
away?
just going up.
Okay,
No
so going-
direction.
okay.
Just going up.
Mm.
And we both landed in Mehrabad that night, and the next day, I believe that the same night maybe, some organization get information and all, and we went through
The
some,
Iranian organization, or
no, it was foreign, and I'm sure that they got the order from this organization that what to do. We went through some examination, test later on.
to make sure you're sane?
No, as far as body situation and all that. And then some people actually came to interview us
From where?
from UFO department, and they interviewed us.
Do you remember the name of the organization or the
The
people?
UFO, that's why later on we received award from them for best thing. UFO organization, and they be sure that we are not lying, everything was true. They checked the tape, all the conversation.
This is tape
Detail.
of the voice conversation.
Voice.
Was there a tape or recording of the radar data as well?
No, because that time there was not such a thing in the airplane that can record all the
Okay.
movement.
The black boxes didn't record the radar
No,
recordings.
the black box was just for the
Location finder.
Location.
Yeah.
and
How about in the tower?
that's-
Was the tower radar data recorded?
the tower radar no, not recorded, but there was a tape recorder, all the conversation that happens that night between the aircraft and the tower. That tape recorder, that tape recorder exists, and I'm glad that I have one of those tape at home. I have one of those tape too. And then they came make the movie of that. We were playing in that movie as on the ground as the same situation. They made a movie, and
Who made the movie?
the movie made by Iranian TV station.
Oh, I see. Okay.
By Iranian TV station, and we played from the beginning of the story, everything on the ground by some decoration and all that, and we were the actual
Actors.
actors.
Oh, that's interesting. And this
Yeah.
was aired on Iranian TV.
Iranian TV, and I have that tape too.
Oh, that'd be interesting to
Yes,
see.
yes. And later on, as I said, that it was so interesting sight that we received that award from UFO, and about that object that crashed in a mountain. They never find that exactly where this crash. They didn't find any site of any crash on the mountain. The place that we reported, they couldn't find anything. But that place, that object crashed, was the final approach of the commercial airplane. We were flying on Mehrabad. It was not our route to come for landing. It was only route for the commercial. And they told us that for almost a week, any commercial airplane that comes past that mountain, they were losing communication.
Really?
That was another strange thing.
And that had not happened before.
No. Only on that spot, only that one certain distance from the airport, they were losing communication and interrupting the communication. Had bad signal for the landing, buzzer in the radio, you could hear it.
And despite all of that, they could not zero in on it or find any debris
No,
or any.
They haven't found no debris at all.
That's interesting.
Yeah, no debris at all. And later on, they reported that they seen the same object in, I forgot, but I believe they reported that they saw it in Russia, they saw it in India. I'm not sure.
Around
what
the
they
same
report.
following days?
The following, the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And about this story is not related to this one, but later on, about a month later or 2 months later, in Shahrukhi, there were arranged that we were going with airplane to fire missile, bomb, to practicing this stuff, and it was way away from the base. And I was flying with helicopter in the morning to go to that range to be a range officer to direct the airplanes to come for bombing. And when we get over there, the night before, the people that they were living on that, few soldiers and all, they reported that there were lots of noise outside. The dogs were barking very bad, and when we went over there, top of the helicopter, they show us that there is two circle big spot on the ground that is been burned. All the grass is all it's been burned. Two circle. And that night, nobody knows what's happened. That
Did they go down to the circles to investigate?
Yes, I don't have that much information about that case. Yeah, but they're saying that there was two huge circle on the ground. The ground has been burned, black, and that was another. This was not probably related to this one.
So going back to the main story, so how long were you guys airborne chasing the UFO? Was that like about an hour or two?
Less than an hour.
Okay.
No, less
And
than
then towards the end of your flight, the second jet came. And do you know who was flying that jet?
The flying that jet was another officer. At that time I was captain, and he was another captain that came, and his name was Captain Jafari.
And then how much of an overlap did you guys have while you were flying? Was it like 10 minutes before you guys had to go for refueling, or?
No, he came about, as I said, about 45 minutes after me.
And how long were they airborne chasing?
They were chasing probably less than 45 minutes, because as soon that that thing happened, and
the
that
UFO
light
took off.
vanished in space, so they came back and landed too.
Okay.
We both landed in an arrow.
Okay. This is fascinating. So, I mean, I have to ask you this: what is your personal? I mean, those are the data as you saw it, right?
Right.
You're as a scientist,
Right.
engineer, captain. You're
Right,
recording the data
right,
as you saw it.
Right.
What's your personal, non-binding belief as to what you thought you saw? Do you believe it's a UFO, or is some physical phenomena that could have been, or some secret weapon from some superpower that we're testing?
Well, with all this investigation that happened about UFO during past 60 years around the world, I cannot say anything, but in my knowledge, there was something that knew that what we are doing. What was it that they know with what we are doing? I don't know what was it.
Okay.
It was an object. It was just I can't say, because I never see the object. We only could see the lights. And many people says in other reports that this object has a colorful lights, and the lights turning, we see in the movie and all that. And this was too close to these stories.
Wow. Okay. Great. Well, thank you very much. This was a fascinating story, and we appreciate your time for telling us about this incident. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
All right.